Good evening. Welcome to DiversiTV, Season 4. If you are just tuning in for the first time, welcome. If you are tuning in as our growing legion of dedicated viewers, welcome back. Tonight we're going to be looking at an African-American perspective with our two guests, but just in case you have never seen DiversiTV, let me explain our mission. Go to slide, gents. Our mission is to illuminate everyday diversity issues and give the mic and the camera to those who don't always get it. And to that end, our schedule, that we are in our 4th season, and our seasons roughly correspond to the terms at LCC, though we did have a hiatus since we started the show. We've been going for almost a year now. We usually start out with a native perspective because we're on Turtle Island, and that's how we were raised, to give props to the land that we're on, to the indigenous folks, wherever that is. And we go for it with an Anglo perspective, and Africans in America, Latino, Asian, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, transgendered, queer questioning, intersexed, and two-spirit. Disability, youth, class, and that will be actually our last show, though we also might throw in the mix spirituality and religion. Now, we do tend to try and go in this order, but guest availability often changes. We also like to respond to current events, so the producer, that's me, reserves the right to, keep it live, keep it interesting, keep it relevant. So we try to have an equal hand and try and work everybody in, but we don't always. But it's been an interesting body of work, and we have been getting feedback, and we'll be give you an opportunity later to email us comments as we go along. Now, topically, our guests tonight basically are students here at Lane, and go to slide again. So recently, some of us got an email. Last week, the Arizona State Appropriations Committee passed an amendment to a routine Homeland Security bill, SB 1108, that would prohibit students at the state's public universities and community colleges from organizing groups based on race, i.e., groups such as MECHA, the Black Business Students Association, Native Americans United. These are specific groups that are already operating on campus in Arizona. Now, bear in mind, Arizona, the state with John McCain. John McCain voted at least 3 times to ban the Martin Luther King holiday, even though he apologized for that. Arizona was like one of the last states in the union, I mean, we're talking within the last decade, to recognize the King holiday. So there you go. So here they go, passing a bill to basically get rid of so-called race-based groups, or we would call them culturally specific groups on campus. And according to newspaper reports, the Representative John Kavanaugh, a Republican from Scottsdale, supporter of the measure, called these campus organizations self-defeating and, quote, self-destructive for students. Now, hold on, okay. As Cesar Chavez said, preservation of one's culture does not mean contempt for others. These student groups are like any other school, club, or fraternity. They bring students together so that they can achieve academic success, and even though they are culturally specific, certainly if they follow the Lane model, even, Black Student Union also has white students in it. We've actually, in the 17 years I've been here, we've had a Japanese student be vice president. So it's like, it's being not racially exclusive. It's just, students who are interested in gathering for a particular purpose to learn about specific cultures, etc. So they also offer a place to meet, make friends, and support one another. Their goal is to help students succeed. So, for example, the members of the University of Arizona's MECHA chapter visit high schools to encourage students to attend college. They hold events and fundraisers to spread the message that education is the key to success. So the bill then also goes one step further. It would also ban public schools or colleges from including race-based classes or school-sponsored activity. So for example, the classes that I'll be resuming teaching again, the Ethnic Studies Department, it would ban ethnic studies. And any, Chicano studies or any kind of culturally specific classes. So officially, the language says it would ban any activity, quote, deemed contradictory to the values of American democracy or Western civilization. So one of the things, and when we look at, in terms of racial code words, what American democracy means, because there was a time, especially as Christianity was practiced in right after discovery and well into the 18th and 19th century, Christian legally meant whites only. Okay? And there are many people who talk about with the phrases red-blooded American, which in fact is actually a phrase taken directly from the Ku Klux Klan. Their logo that has a drop of red blood in the middle. Basically, red-blooded to the Klan means white Anglo-Saxon Protestant racial purity. So when they're talking about red-blooded American, they're also speaking whites only in coded language, right? Because again, all human beings have red blood. All right? So what does it mean to be a red-blooded American? If everybody has red blood and you're born here and you're an American citizen, it has no other meaning other than racial purity unless you consider somebody else American. So Western civilization, also by dictionary definition, basically is, again, a whites-only construct. It only means Europeans. And that, when the Columbus discovered America narrative, etc. So enough of my soapbox. So studies show, and since I'm the drug counselor, one of the things that I know as well is that alcohol and drug studies show that students who learn about their race and culture have a lower dropout rate and succeed greater in school, and they have lower substance abuse rates than their mainstream, i.e. Euro-American peers. So, our guests tonight, Liza Rosa-Diaz, who's president of the BSU, and Kimberly Young, the vice president of the BSU. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
It was a mouthful, but it sets the context for a lively discussion. So, where are you from, and where did you grow up? Assuming you weren't local.
I was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, or Borican, and I grew up in Puerto Rico as well as the U.S. Virgin Islands and the west coast of the United States. That would be Oregon as well as San Diego.
Okay. And I'm actually from Eugene, Oregon.
Hey,
so
hello. All right.
I'm kind of local. And yeah, I was raised up, went to school in Springfield, so faced a lot there. And being one of the only, if the only, colored student in my whole elementary school.
Which elementary school?
Yolanda Elementary.
Okay.
So, and then I lived in Salem, Portland, and Eugene.
Okay. All right. So how did you, okay, so we got that. So what made you come to Eugene?
Well, my father decided that he didn't want to work for Hess Oil anymore, the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
And so they decided to come over here and see what Eugene had to offer. And of course, I was 6 years old, so that's basically how we started here. I actually went to move to San Diego, California for a long period of time, over 22 years. And I ended up coming back to Eugene. I felt that it was a good starting point. I had some family here, and I wanted to make sure that my boys, I have 3 boys, had a place where they could actually settle down for a while, because I had been moving around for a while, and I wanted to settle down.
Why'd you come to Lane, Kim?
Well, originally, out of high school, I played basketball, so I had a few community colleges that were offering me scholarships. I decided to stay at Lane and go to school here. Took a break, needed to get out for a while, and then decided to come back because of my family. So mainly in Eugene for family, but ready to get out soon.
Okay. So what is the purpose of a BSU, and what is your vision for the BSU at Lane?
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, but now we're on camera.
I feel that the purpose of the BSU is to provide, and actually you talked about it on there, is to provide a place for Black students to come and gather, a safe place for them to talk about the issues that are important to them, learn about who they are, become educated about the issues that affect them. I think that for me to be able to be a part of BSU gives me the opportunity to have students here be engaged in questions, the questions that are really important to actually start making a difference in their life. Also, for the students, it gives them an opportunity to get a high quality education, because they're not just going to school and taking classes, but they're becoming a part of something that's going to actually enrich their lives.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and sort of to relate with other African Americans or even minorities or anyone who's faced any oppression, which, like you said, it's not exclusive to only Black Americans. Anybody is welcome, and that's why it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
I don't see why it would be wiped out. It's not like, you know, in Arizona State. That's just crazy. It's like absurd. I don't see why. It's a positive thing for students, and it's not like there's any kind of negative impact or violence or anything coming out of it. And so our vision is to grow, I guess, grow as people that have faced oppression. I know personally, I have faced racism and stereotypes that I have had to overcome that not, you know, white Americans or people who, not even, you know, white Americans, they face oppression too, so it's...
whether they realize it or not.
Whether they realize it or not. And so I think Black Student Union provides a place for us to really build our voice and be strong and to overcome oppression and societal setbacks.
Well, also one of the things is that when we get opportunities to work in the community, to outreach to other organizations that are there to help Black students and people in the community, it enriches us. It helps us to create allies and that network, so that when we provide opportunities like events or programs here, we have a really good network of friends and allies that'll help us to do that, to create those great events for the students.
We've been doing, we did the voter registration rally with all the clubs, and that's another thing, like they're going to, sorry, I keep going back to this Arizona State thing, and it's crazy to me.
It's not too far away, and it's not impossible that it could happen here.
And see, Black Student Union is just a club. Like, you can have any club that you come to the campus with, come to the, what is it that you have to, how do you become a club?
Well, you have to be ratified in front of the ASLCC, and once you become ratified, then you can start, you can start getting financial assistance from the ASLCC in order to fund the different events that your club would like to do. But it gives us a little bit more voice in the community and on campus.
Like freedom of expression.
Right. And within limits, freedom of expression.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because as an example, I mean, just before either of you came here, but you probably have heard about them because there's some of the posters there, right? So every once in a while, skinheads come. And usually around the King holiday, but sometimes, though they didn't do it around Hitler's birthday this year.
I was.
Yeah, okay, so you remember, right? Yeah, right. So they put up posters against Martin Luther King and the real story, and, you know, these whole things from like the Little Rock Nine, and, you know, race mixing brings da-da-da-da-da-da, all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that comes up, you know, because either they're students or they're non-students, either way, even if they're students, basically, and if they wanted to put, for example, put together a white student union, right? You know, looking at the pattern of white student unions across the country, they tend to be basically talking about, you know, American values and Western civilization, and we've got to hold true to da-da-da-da-da, and they tend to be racially exclusive, et cetera. Yeah.
And the language is very oppressive.
Well, right, the language is not inclusive. So basically, you know, the idea is, you know, the official response with the college, in terms of, to the degree that there's been an official response besides, you know, denouncing, you know, hate speech, et cetera, is like, yo, if you want to put stuff up, then you can go get ratified like ASLCC, and, you know, basically part of your charter, you know, as we talked about with your charter, is you can't be exclusive. So you have to have, you know, even if you are a white student union, you have to have other groups, you know, other racial groups as part of your mix, or allow that to happen, right? And so, and they've generally declined that offer, you know, heretofore. Wow. So there's other efforts. I mean, you know, the whole Arizona thing and the anti-affirmative action movement, et cetera, that spread state to state is part of that. Because, again, you know, the fact that there's an ethnic studies, you know, program here at all, and as I've, you know, if I hadn't said that before, you know, as part of DiversiTV, the first African American or Black Studies program in the state of Oregon started at Lane Community College, okay? Before the U of O, before Portland. And it came out of student activism with the BSU in the 70s. And BSU's, that entire movement came out of the whole, you know, students in college organizing, trying to get curricular changes, trying to organize as a safe place in terms of looking at, okay, you're the only one in class. What is that like when, you know, common story, when slavery comes up? Everybody looks at you, right? Yeah. And, you know, et cetera, you know, you get picked last for games, or whatever it is, all the different things of oppression. I wasn't necessarily going to ask you, but if you want to talk about, what are those things that you face, that you talk about, to kind of make that visible?
The things that we talk about to make it visible?
Well, in terms of your experience where you've been excluded as part of, you know, your school experience, those, you know, when, you know, you talk about oppression.
Right.
So what oppression? What oppression could you experience in elementary school?
I had, for me, because I have told this story a lot, is that I didn't see myself as different. I didn't see color until I came to Eugene, actually. I mean, I was from the Virgin Islands, and I didn't see that. And I didn't see myself as different until I actually moved to Eugene, and I started to get treated differently. Like, you know, my hair, and people were asking questions and things like that. And for me, that affected my academic experience. Okay? And I mean, if you think about that as a young child, how does that affect you as a teenager? You know, even more with all the pressures of just growing up and stuff like that. If you're, you know, separated. And I remember when I was in Ashland High, I was one of two students of color in school, and a student came up to me, "Are you Black? Are you from Africa?" And I mean, just those experiences that I've had, and a lot of different experiences like that, really just affected me in a way that instead of being able to just focus on my academics or just living, I'm constantly thinking about that. Like, you know, there's something about me, there's something wrong. Why am I singled out? You know, is there something wrong with having color on my skin? You know, and it did all my life. All my life. It affected me.
So
greatly.
I think in that way, it maybe makes you oppressive on yourself. I mean, people giving you that negative attention and singling you out forces you to wonder, is there something wrong with me? Oh, I'm not, you know, the normal, the beautiful, whatever, blonde hair, blue eyes, which growing up in the 80s and 90s, that was what was beautiful. So,
well, that's still considered a standard of beauty today. If we were to run the, you know, the Clark's, you know, classic doll test, you know, we would pick out the smart doll, pick out the, you know,
most beautiful
doll,
right.
You know, right.
And as a female growing up, you know, you worry about that. And then you realize that it's not really about what's on the outside. It's about how much you got, you know, in your brain.
Well, where do you get that message, though?
You have to discover it yourself, or support groups, you know. I think rites of passage would have been a great thing for me back when I was in school. But I'm glad they have that to offer for young African Americans.
Well, actually, rites of passage is for students of color.
Just
right.
Okay,
it often
that's good.
begged the question, or we were often asked, you know, in the case of, okay, so why don't you offer it for, you know, what most frequently comes up is, you know, gay and lesbian students, and then also, well, what about white students? Well, okay. What about it? Okay, because we can't generate rites of passage for white people, but you know, we have suggestions as to what that would look like. You know, but you know, again, you have to do the work and figure that out for yourself.
And maybe growing up where they were a minority in somewhere in the inner city or something, maybe that would be more beneficial. But it's just the fact of being a minority that you do need extra support and help because you've been singled out.
Well, whose culture's been taken away for hundreds of years? I mean, living, you know. So how do we get that back? How do we preserve that? You know, and we preserve that by providing programs where our youth can learn about who they are, because what we've learned in the textbooks is not about really our culture at all. There's nothing really about, you know, our culture and in how rich it is and how beautiful it is. You know, it's just about America, about, you know, and how America was developed. They don't talk about who discovered what, which is a majority of the things that were you know, like refrigerators, all that kind of stuff were discovered and created by Black Americans. You know, you don't learn that rich history. You know, you're learning this diluted, whatever history. So by providing opportunities for youth to understand about their culture, where they're from, and their culture within the United States historically, what we have done, you know, is really, really important. And I just wanted to go back to that piece that we were talking about in reference of mental oppression, because when you're young and you have those experiences of oppression, you either choose at an early age whether to fight or whether to blend in. Okay, because I come from a culture that when we came to America, it was about blending in. And I have two aunts here that, for me, are the complete opposite of what I see as Boricua, which is strong and like, you know, like loud and intense and passionate. And to me, they accepted that going into the shadows, blending in, not being loud, not being, you know. And so I think it's those programs help us to be proud of who we are, and proud of our voice, and proud of our intensity, and all that which makes up who we are, you know? I think it's really important.
Definitely.
Because I feel it's so funny, because I'll drive down the street with my my music blaring, and you know, sometimes I have all my regalia in my car, and I feel like an alien. I feel very strange driving down the street of Eugene, because I don't feel like I have that support from my own people, because of that whole oppressive, you know, ness. So.
And that's a hard thing to deal with.
It is very hard.
I think you're definitely right about the blending in. You either choose to be strong and go against it or blend in. And I know personally, I did for a while choose to like step back and try not to be the center of singled out of that, that's the, that's the black girl or whatever. That's until I decided, no, I love myself. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of my roots. I'm proud to be African American. But that doesn't make me think I'm better than anybody else. And I'm thankful that I'm not racist in that way. I don't, I don't look. I'm just proud of who I am now instead of trying to blend in and be part of the norm.
And the whole idea of having, if we decide to embrace ourselves, embrace who we are, that means that we're defiant and we're loud and stuff like that,
Well, we often do. I mean, we're passionate people, right? We are emotionally expressive as part of our nature. We are incisive, and sometimes we do get loud and say things forcefully if we feel them forcefully. I mean, the whole just again torn from the headlines. Just before we went on, I hadn't shared the email with you, but I had just come from this African American Treatment Summit, and I'd basically sent a email to the state and an op-ed that may appear in the weekly about this experience of, well, it's essentially institutional racism in a local treatment agency. So, some staff were questioning, some Euro-American staff were questioning whether I should be so forceful and use those strong terms, almost, as a public person at LCC. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, okay? I'm at the state level, I can't bleach, sorry. And one of the things, if I refer someone to treatment that's African American, I expect that there is, especially if we scheduled training experiences, that person not be treated by their race, but by their condition.
Exactly.
Okay? Addiction is
Absolutely.
a medical condition. Okay? And someone should not be discharged early because they bring up race as an issue as part of how they've been traumatized, which happened with that person. Okay? And that person died. So I'm outraged at not only what happened with that person, but the 3 other women that went through treatment with her, plus the intern that we trained here at LCC, a person of color, experiencing racism in a local treatment agency. I ain't calling them out yet, but, again, is that appropriate for me as a public official to call out discrimination, which is illegal, by the way, of a publicly funded institution? I believe it is. So if you have issues with that, you have issues with that. But again, with VSU, it's like if you experience, you're here to be a support for students and basically make part of that oppression visible, but also be able to celebrate who you are. And how do you do that? So we talked about this a little bit on camera, off camera. So you recently converted.
Yes.
Why? I know it's a personal experience.
Well, I was on the path, I feel like, spiritually, towards a devoted way of life, and my purpose as a human being on this planet, and I found Islam and became Muslim, and it's been so much peace for me, and also strengthens me a lot, just facing, even more stereotypes, and to overcome. I'm not oppressed as a woman in Islam. I'm actually protected by my religion, and there's so many misconceptions about it. I think with 9/11 of what the religion is, and there's good and bad in anything, right?
Yes.
There's, you know, so you can't judge everything off of one experience or one event or one group of people.
Or one group of people, because...
Which there's radicalists in Islam and not. And so, and well, you know, speaking diversity, I think that there is like a lot of Muslims on campus, and I don't feel like they have any support here on campus. There's, you know, not a support group or anything, which, I don't know, I'd like to get started.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so.
Only a couple of people come to, you know, I mean, I have offered my conference room as a place to do prayer, right? And there are a couple of people that take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. As far as, you know, a support group or, you know, a student club, that hasn't happened yet. But, you know, one of the things we can talk about historically is that your conversion is part of the authentic experience, and definitely the authentic African American experience. So even if we're talking about a third of the slaves brought here were Muslim and were forced to convert to Christianity, right? A lot of rappers, a lot of hip-hop artists convert, and basically some of the things they talk about, well, you know, Islam, the Quran specifically forbids racism.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
So, you know, it's like, you know, yeah, since the 9/11 piece, you know, people say, you know, and I'm just quoting people, but, you know, I'm just, you know, it makes sense to me. It's like Osama bin Laden, okay, doesn't represent Islam any more than the Ku Klux Klan represents Christianity. But guess what? In this country, we elect the Klan to office, and they're protected. They have not gone, you know, the government does not go after the Klan to the same degree they went after Martin Luther King, by the way. So, you know, when you look at that, you know, oh, you refer to radicalists, right? So what's, you know, the head of the FBI says that Martin was the most dangerous Negro in America, while leaving the Ku Klux Klan untouched, who's bombing churches, et cetera, and they don't even begin to prosecute people till 50 years later.
Right.
There's some mix,
some
mix-up going here.
These people, some of them are still holding positions of authority, right?
Yes, still.
I just know with like the Black Panther Party, one of the members of the San Francisco 8 came to LCC and spoke about what they stood for, the Black Panther Party. They stood for supporting the community's needs, bringing them food, health care for people who didn't have health care, doing these kind of things. And, you know, the government just, you know, said, oh, you know, falsely blamed them or whatever, and some of them are still in prison, right? 2 of them are still in prison, and they're facing the people the people that were persecuting them 30 years ago are back, still persecuting them. These people are still, you know, Ku Klux Klan. They're still people that are in power, and I think that we've come not a very long way. We think. I mean,
in some ways, you know, while there's hope and there's an illusion, you know, with the whole Obama phenomenon and stuff like that, and, you know, there's still a controversy of Reverend Wright, and, you know, who is saying a lot of things. You know, I mean, I've been called radical for saying that, oh, well, you know, a lot of black people believe that the government had a hand in killing Dr. Martin Luther King. So that's kind of, a lot of people. That's not
true.
Well, that's not radical to a lot of black people. You know, they're willing to believe that. And so let's look at why they think that, and, you know, what are the reasons for thinking that, and, you know, whether you believe the government, you know, created AIDS or not. Here's what it speaks to. It speaks to people do not trust the government for solutions. So you come up with your own solutions, and so you create your own groups and your own support. And so this, you know, BSU's come out of that kind of tradition.
Right.
You know, converting to
Awareness.
Islam, even if you were, whether you were raised with, you know, in a religious faith or tending to be Christian or whatever, you know, is an attempt to, hey, recapture some of that history, you know, some of that internal pride, et cetera, et cetera.
All these groups, you know, these clubs in the colleges really reflect the need for us to be able to hold strong to our culture and our authenticity. I mean, if you look at Borican,
Explain that term.
Borican, well, that is the native or natural people that were of the island prior to Columbus coming and doing what he basically did, which was trying to colonize and wipe out the indigenous people. And as a result, one of the things that it has happened is that our language is not readily spoken at all. I mean, we have English as well as Spanish as a primary language on the island. And so there you have a perfect example of people coming in and governing and placing their culture upon a people that already have a great civilization, a strong civilization, religion, way of doing things, and basically saying that we're just going to take you over and decimate. And that's I mean, for me, having the clubs and organizations is a way for us to say, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen to us, to the people that are here. We're not going to lose our authenticity. And so when we have that threat of somebody saying that it's not important, it's not, to me it's just like the same thing as Columbus coming in there and trying to just take over and decimate and take away what's rightfully ours, who we are. And that's for me, I think BSU is it's one of the important reasons why we have a club, is to make sure that that doesn't happen, that we do not lose our voice, our ancestry, everything. It's very important.
Yeah. And encourage that in other folks, too. I mean, so not being exclusive, to encourage that for other people.
I was just talking to two young ladies at my son's soccer game, and we were talking about, because I had overheard them talk about how wonderful Eugene is and how, you know, such open and liberal thinkers, and I just couldn't help but get into the conversation. And I said, and before I even mentioned what I had done, I said, you know what, I think it's a nice place, it's a comfortable place, but I think that it can be really a place of complacency, and people can hide and not really realize, you know, want to accept the fact that there's an outside reality outside of Eugene that, you know, is there. And the fact is that we have issues of racism and oppression that we can't just ignore just because we're in our little tiny town. It's happening here. And as I was telling, they're telling them that there were, you know, instances of, you know, hate crimes on the campus, on the university campus, of people being thrown rocks at, racial slurs, all sorts of stuff still happening. When I said that they're still, but also they're like, and these are women in their early 20s, late 20s, and they were like, there were two wonderfully beautiful women. They had one woman was very interested about asking questions. She wanted to research. She wanted to understand. And then the other woman was a woman that both her parents were gay, and so she had a sense of oppression in her life. So she kind of had I think an understanding of that feeling of oppression and not knowing. But still, it was. I said, you know what? It's really important for us as a people to end the cycle of ignorance. Okay. I said, it's not about being white or black. It's not about that. It's really about just ending that cycle of ignorance. Because, yes, you're going to have those people who know what they're doing because they've already been conditioned over a period of time how racism looks and all that kind of stuff. But then you're going to have those people who really don't know what that means and want to learn. They want to learn. They want to understand. They don't want to be a part of that anger and that hate and all that kind of stuff, because that's just not what they feel inside. That's not what's natural to them. So those are the people that you want to help and teach and educate. You know, those are our allies. Those are our brothers and sisters. You know, and I think that BSU engenders that type of welcoming attitude. We want people who are curious and want to learn and want to understand. They don't want to be part of that cycle of ignorance and hate and anything like that. They don't want to continue that history, you know? And so BSU not only through welcoming everybody, but also we are a part of the Council of Clubs. And I think through the Council of Clubs, which is, you know, a council of all the clubs that have been ratified on campus, get together and we share about the events that we're involved in. Also, we invite the clubs to participate and be a part of the things that we do. So in that, we're helping to engender friendships and helping people to understand who we are and what we're about. And, you know, I mean, it's about breaking that barrier. It's about engaging a conversation, you know. And so, I mean, I think I'm really excited about being a part of BSU, especially this year with this presidential year happening, because people are so much more willing to have the conversation, you know. And I think
it is an interesting side effect.
It is. So yeah. So having these organizations on campus is essential for us to break the cycle of ignorance.
Unify. We've been unified. Our Council of Clubs is doing good. We all work together. Campus events and stuff. It's good.
What more do you think the college could do to assist you?
I can say it right now.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, let me think. I don't know. I wouldn't say. I think we're funded pretty well. I wouldn't complain about funding, but I don't know much. I'm new to it.
That got set up so you would get funded pretty well by a past BSU president.
Right. Somebody did their job.
Yeah.
And what else? I don't know. Go ahead, Liza.
I really, 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 really believe that it's important for the campus to hire more professors of color. Very, very, very important. I think it's very essential for not only, I mean, definitely students of color, but for everybody. Because when you have professors that are of color, Black, Asian, Latino, whatever, you're not only benefiting from, of course, their academic, you know, experience and skills, but from their own experience in terms of life. It enriches the academic experience. Also, for students of color, when you are have the opportunity to be taught by a professor of color, African American, whatever, you have a sense of identity. Kind of, you are able to feel like you can relax. I mean, literally, I think that for me, being in a room with a Latina, I feel like I'm able to kind of relax a little bit, and because I feel that they can identify with me a little bit more, you know, and so you do feel a little bit more sense of safety. I don't know. I mean, to me, I feel more comfortable, but overall, I think just the experience enriches and provides a better academic experience. You're just better for it. You're just better for it, and also, I think that when we have events, when we have things that we desire to do in order to provide services and to meet the needs of Black students, students of color, I think it's really important for the staff to support them, whether it's financially, whether it's somehow endorsing them, or whatever the case, verbally, on committees or whatever. Hey, allow staff to come in, or allow the management to come in and sit in our meetings. Let's have that conversation. I mean, I really believe about having that conversation. Getting personal, getting, there sitting and really listening instead of being up here. Let's get here with the students that are, you know, the life and blood of the campus. If we weren't here, you know, then we wouldn't have a college. So come in, sit in our groups, listen to what's really important to us, you know, and show that you care. And then start actualizing it. Show us by when we ask for this, we ask for that, you know, follow through with it. Do something about it. Let us know that you understand it's important to our college experience, and you know that's definitely important. So
Good.
So well, as students, since your primary activity is in the classroom, then you feel more in the classroom. So, you know, so faculty. So what about other staff too?
other staff, in reference to what you mean, like the management and
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Management, classified, the people that, sell your food, help you with your financial aid, all those kind of things. Advise you in your classes.
Well, like I said, I think, do you have anything to add to that in terms of how those people on campus can show their support?
Yeah, I guess being involved, interactive with students, I agree with you on that level, that instead of being, stuck in their offices doing, not that, I don't know, they have a lot on their plate, but to be more interactive and just active in events going on and everything.
So if they don't know,
Then-
So if they don't know something, then they want to know and learn about who we are, what we're doing. Get involved. Also, if there are things legislatively or things that can actually help the atmosphere on campus, participate in making change for that.
Yeah.
It is a core value of Lane Community College is diversity. How do we reflect that we understand that is important to us? It's not just the student's responsibility, it's everybody that works and goes to school here on campus to uphold Lane Community College on its core value of diversity.
Yes. One would hope that everybody would participate in that. And to the degree that they do. You talk about, I guess, hiring, more diverse hiring. So certainly, I have to agree with you, of course, and not just because I chair Diversity Council, but also because looking at, often the conditions that are often brought up as barriers, we're in budget cutting times, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, disinvestment in education.
Right.
So there's lots of things playing into the mix, as well as even if you bring folks, do they stay, and then what is required for them to stay?
Right. How do we keep it?
Yeah. There is that piece of sustainability that is right. How do you get? Yeah, you can bring diversity to a place, but then how do you sustain it? Because especially if that place has had a, shall we say, history of hostility to diversity. I'm not just referring to the college, I'm referring to Eugene and also Oregon as a whole. So there are those pieces where you have those vestiges of that dead hand of history that ain't so dead. Where you earlier referenced, though you didn't explicitly state it, so I'll say it to keep you out of trouble.
Okay.
The Klan is part of law enforcement, FBI, police, et cetera, et cetera. So they've always recruited within the military. So they've never had an active purge of those elements ever. So then, right, what do you do when you have like a Sean Bell killed or a William Stevenson killed in Portland, or William Stevenson was an off-duty security guard that was choked out after he's breaking up a fight between two white men, and even though the witnesses said he wasn't part of it, he was breaking it up, the police continued to choke him and killed him, right? And then afterwards printed T-shirts saying, "Don't choke him, don't smoke him, don't choke him," right? So and then when the police chief tried to have those people disciplined, they got rid of the police chief. So, there's lots of ingrained in terms of, when we talk about the college professor here that teaches in his history class that slavery improved black people and, lifting them out of savagery, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, as a contrast to classes that say, well, no, we were here before slavery, and we, slavery didn't improve us. There's, a whole other conversation that should be had. And having, an atmosphere that promotes those kind of folks and then makes students like you and also white students feel that they're getting a bigger picture and a greater stake in their education.
I don't know what your time is, but I know that
we're getting down towards 2 minutes, 5 minutes. So what are some of the things you wish were common knowledge about and to know about you and your quote-unquote identified people? So, we talked a little bit about identified. So, African-American, Puerto Rican, Muslim, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So what are some of the common knowledge in terms of education? The things that you wish were common knowledge, because a lot of times you find yourself having, in the Columbus discovered America narrative, you're left out, right?
So are you referencing, basically asking us common knowledge in terms of our identifier, our culture?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Because, not to bring up the controversial Reverend Wright again, but one of the things he talked about is how do, there are a lot of things about us that, are squarely within the tradition that you think are crazy or paranoid. And, well, why do we think that?
Well, I mean, when I think about my people, I think about a culture that is still very much oppressed, that are living in substandard conditions. I mean, we were living there 10 years ago, and my son was going to school in Rincon, and they were still writing on chalkboards with pallets, water on the floor with mosquitoes everywhere, and I mean, little know anything. It was very substandard. Also, the fact that there is such high competition for work that you can't get work.
Yeah.
You cannot get work. We have Walmarts, and we have, it's commercialized, Americanized, but you still have every single person available in the family working.
Yeah.
Even young children are still working on the street, and you still have such segregation of your own culture.
Right.
I mean, people.
Talking about Puerto Rican, Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And you have, you have two situations that are happening there.
Nominally a U.S. territory.
Right, not only U.S. territory. You have the Tainos who are struggling to maintain and keep their culture, their history from being destroyed by the capitalistas, which is the government of Puerto Rico, because they want to, in a sense, accept and embrace the American way of life, and they don't want to recognize their history. Okay, and then you have, since I was a little girl, I mean, my father had to deal with it between my father and my mother's parents, how you're not good enough if you're dark skinned. So you still have those situations where, I mean, I remember my sister or my cousin being beat up by my grandmother and my aunts because she was dating a black man.
So the issue of colorism as a subset of racism is
it's still very prevalent there in Puerto Rico, and wherever you go, if your family moves, that mindset moves with them. And the new generation, it is working on eliminating that and stopping that cycle of oppression that is in our own culture.
Kim, same question.
Okay. I wish that common knowledge about my religion is that it is a peaceful one, and that as a woman in my religion, I'm not oppressed. Women have equal rights. They actually do a lot of handle finances and have, Muslim women went to war back when they were fighting for their religion, and just basically that as a Muslim woman, I'm not oppressed, you know, and I feel more protected against the society and things, corruption in this world in general. And then as African American, I feel like I want people to acknowledge that slavery, the effects of slavery still exist today, and it's not just in the past. And so many people that I've spoken to say that didn't happen to you.
Right. That was a long time ago.
So
yeah,
that's
so
it.
We'll have to leave it there. We have less than a minute or so. So I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And it's been a really good show. If you like what you've seen, feel free to email us at liveclass@lanecc.edu. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to see. And have suggestions for future shows. This has been DiversiTV, and I think a part of the outro we'll be talking about when this will be rebroadcast. So tune in again, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for your attention. Peace.